tube of views, or whatever you want to call it. Adam Patterson here, obviously for this beautiful channel of Adam Patterson. And I wanted to speak about today FOMO, fear of missing out, versus losses, how it plays into risk aversion, and I wanted to speak about it because it happens in real time every single day, whether it be the stock market, whether you want to go into entrepreneurship, but I'm going to focus this around the stock market because it's an easier analogy to make. But when it comes to risk aversion, it's a graph, you would say, and how you choose your decisions that you make, you got to do it based off of how much you can tolerate and how much would be actually optimal for what you want to get out of it for the result that you're looking to get. So in terms of like entrepreneurship, you're weighing out opportunity costs here is really what you're doing at all times. And when it comes to entrepreneurship, you're weighing out the potential for a long-term like upside, because everything in entrepreneurship is long-tailed because it's a long game as long as you're playing it the right way. If you're not looking to get rich today or tomorrow and going to do something incredibly criminal, and you're actually looking to build a real business that's going to sustain over time and grow over time into the wealth that you want to create, you would have to think about it that way. So you would sacrifice short-term gain, which would be if you had a job, it would be your salary, the benefits that you'd receive and everything, because over time, though you may grow in your job, it's going to be a much slower trajectory than if you were to grow in entrepreneurship, because when you are an entrepreneur, it's more exponential, where it may take a long time to get off the ground, but once you put leverage into place, people, systems, technology, things like this, you start to scale quickly as long as you're in a scalable business. But in a job, you have your set salary, which they pay you pretty much every year, especially if you work in a sales position. They don't usually increase your salary unless you move positions or move companies. So everything kind of stays like this, and then you only grow up slowly off of it as you add in more business and more business and more business. Or if you're in an operational role or something that's like pure salary and you get increases every year, and say it's like 4 or 5%, you can actually chart that out because your benefits are going to stay the same if they don't take them away from you to save company profits. So everything will stay like this, and then you're going to grow even slower because sales is probably the highest thing. So, you know, everything is weighing out opportunity costs. So what I traded in the short term was, you know, a steady salary with the opportunity for commissions, with benefits and everything. And what I traded away from that steady block was I went all the way back down to zero. I had to pay my own benefits, so I actually put myself down. I had no salary, and I had no commissions coming in because my book of business, I had to leave it where I was. God dang. So I traded off everything short term that was already steady and stable for what could be, you know? And the reason that I did that was because when I looked at the math of the company that I was working for, I was really receiving about 3 to 4% of what the actual work that I put in was. They told me it was like 15% in commissions. When I did the math out based off of my team and putting people in place and paying their commissions because it was my book of business, I was really receiving about 3 to 4% of the hard work that I was putting in. And my guarantee, my salary there always stayed the same, and my benefits stayed the same. So where I went up like this when I first started, and then they put me into leadership, I went back down. And then even if I worked hard and hard and hard, I would grow slower than if I had just stayed a regular salesperson, just like a individual contributor is what you would call it, instead of being responsible for team and everything. So the company was still growing like this because of all the business that I was bringing on and the business my team was bringing on, but I was growing more like that. So very, very subtly as they were growing exponentially from all our hard work and time put in and everything that we were bringing on. So everything is opportunity costs is what I'm getting here to you. So an analogy for it that everyone can live out in real time is looking at the stock market. And this is kind of why I wanted to bring this up, is because I was looking at my stocks and everything, and I had to weigh out FOMO, fear of missing out on the potential gains that I had in certain stocks. And for anyone who doesn't know about my investment portfolio and how I structure it out and what I can see, I'm more of a daytime trader, so I definitely buy and sell within days, and I try to capitalize on short-term gains. I try to pull out, I try to keep those, and then I try and replicate it again, just to kind of try and compound it very fast. The thing with that is that you can also have very substantial losses. You can make very substantial gains, but you can also have very substantial losses. And humans, we by nature are risk averse, because back in time, if we would stay out too dark or into too dark instead of coming back to our cave, we had the more potential to get eaten by something else that was out there, some predator. We could die to the cold, and we just wouldn't make it back to our family. So we have evolved to be more risk averse because the risks used to be a lot higher. So just a little tangent, I take more risks with my money than I do with my time. So when it comes to spending time on something, I am very strategic about it. I am very thought out about it. I only spend times on things that I find to be productive. So like I'll rest when it's time to rest, but for the most part, I'm moving around. I'm definitely working on sales calls, cold calls, trying to put new business in place. I am always working on customer retention. That is an absolute must. You don't want to give away any of what your hard work has been. Because that was a waste of your past time and you can't get the time back. Money you can always regain, so I take more risks with money than I do with my time. But I want to speak to it in investments because I moved myself into a very risky position, and I'm more risk averse than I put myself in the position to be, even when it comes to just my money, because it's part of my nest egg that I've set aside, and I don't want to, blow it. So when it comes to my portfolio, I invest heavily into market indices, and then what I don't, in terms of percentages, I put about 80% into market indices, and then I keep 10% for investing into either options, which are risky, or penny stocks, which are also risky, and then I keep about 10% in cash just in case something starts to run and I want to dump into it so that I can capture more gain on the upside and then pull out as fast as I possibly can when I hit my parameters. So you always want to have parameters in place. But what I ended up doing was I made a very big win maybe 2 weeks ago, and I ended up making over 100% on a penny stock, and I got greedy and I got too short-sighted, and I ended up moving about 50% of my Robinhood portfolio, which is about 50 grand. I ended up putting about 50% into penny stocks, and then keeping like 30% in cash, and then having 20% in indices. Now, indices move with the market because it's just like it's like you buy a little piece of every company that's in whatever index it is. So like the S&P 500, the 500 largest companies in America. You just buy a little piece of them, and then you kind of get the aggregated gains or the aggregated losses. So it's minimal and it's diversified on its own. So you don't have to worry about buying like Apple, Amazon, Walmart, Costco, and all the big pieces to kind of diversify yourself. It's already diversified, and you just buy a little piece of them all. But I started thinking about it because I had FOMO instead of thinking about the losses. So my opportunity cost was I had FOMO, so fear of missing out on the potential gains that I had because I was getting greedy, or could have, versus thinking about the losses. And when I did that, I moved my portfolio too much, and then a lot of the gains that I had got sucked away because I was being silly. And then you feel the losses much more, even though it's gained money, like it wasn't actually yours in the first place. Once you have it, you want to keep it. And I decided to go and be very risky with it because it was gained money, and it was kind of like playing with the house. The house is money. If you ever go gambling, where you make a big win, you keep your principal off to the side here, and then you take those big wins and you try and go play with those and double them out. But if you come back with nothing because you're not careful enough with it, you're going to be really upset because you're going to be like, I was up so much and now I don't have it. And you feel even more pain because you gained it and then you lost it. So you want to be kind of very careful with the things that you do, because as Warren Buffett has always said, you have to have the right temperament to play in the stock market. So you have to have the right temperament when it comes to anything. When it comes to entrepreneurship, building your own business, when it comes to the stock market, when it comes to the choices that you make, you always want to understand what your goals are and what your timeline is for those goals. So if you've ever heard of SMART goals, I forget what the acronym actually stands for, but you really want to play into that quite a bit, because if you don't actually set these goals in place with timelines, with what your plans are, with your parameters, and you don't stick to it, you're going to end up in one of these spots where you have FOMO or you have massive losses. And you can have them both at the same time. The FOMO is what led me to get into making silly choices, and because of that, I had losses. You know what I mean? So if I would have actually stuck to my parameters and what my portfolio allocation should have been, I wouldn't have had such massive losses. I would have kept most of the gain instead of giving away half of it, and I wouldn't be in the position I am in today. So everything is an opportunity cost. You can still be risky and have, with risk comes reward, but you have to, it's got to be a balance. You want to have risk, but you also want to have reward, and you would like to get in these buckets where you're risking some and your reward would be high. So that's kind of the space that I like to play in, is right there. But whatever you're using, if you're in the stock market, just be careful. Don't get FOMO. You might have massive losses if you do, and then you're going to be even more upset than if you would have missed out on having some gains. So that's what I had for you right now. That's what I wanted to speak about. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Comment down below whatever your feedback might be. And then subscribe if you want to follow along for more things on finance, speaking about entrepreneurship. I'll get back to speaking about business. I just always get off on these random tangents because I have my hands in so many pots. But thanks again for following along. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you again.